My Gavanen Melonin, and well met indeed. I'm Archea Galadirthan, head of the modding scene behind Divide and Conquer, and welcome to this week's faction overview for the Woodland realm, previously known as Thranduil's realm, but I didn't really like that because if he died, why would you still name your realm after him? So Woodland realm fits all better in my opinion. No ado, let us dive in. So your starting size, you only get two regions at the beginning, Torfilin and Thranduil's Halls. Torfilin, if you were interested, I won't say if you're interested throughout this video, but I'll just translate them for you. Torfilin means Arrow Forest. And those are the only two regions you start with. In Thranduil's Halls, you start with Thranduil himself. We can pull him out. He's your faction leader, of course. And he, the design of Thranduil is unique to whoever is your faction leader. That is not specific to Thranduil. But there he is. I can't show you a generic general because Legolas has his own custom strategy model. No, of course he doesn't because of the way they work. So that is what a generic Woodland Realm general looks like, which is very cool. But Legolas has lost his custom look. Otherwise, for reasons that I won't go into here. But you get Legolas in Torfilin, you get Thranduil in Thranduil's Halls. He comes with a couple of units, Woodland Scouts and Spearmen, who are your early tier. And again, Scouts and Spearmen in Torfilin, which again are your early tier. So not a big army at all, not a big region at all. But you do get a spy. Some sort of consolation prize, a spy over there. Now the bodyguard of King Thranduil is Arathirith, which means King's Guard. And they're a fantastic little unit and very, very useful all around. But, as we shall see, they are restricted. Prince Legolas himself comes with Elven King's Bowguard, and the reason he's been given the Elven King's Bowguard as opposed to the Hini Dower, which a lot of people ask for, is because the Hini Dower are useless in melee, and generals will get into melee quite often. And so he needed something that's has a bit more staying power and a bit more punch. So he's got the Elven King's Bowguard rather than Hini Dower. And those are your custom generals. And of course, turning to your family tree, Thranduil, and we have no idea what Legolas' mother's name was, so that's made up. And Legolas, and we've given you a fake sister called Caladwen. So a very small family tree, so you might want to start expanding that relatively quickly. But we've never known the AI to actually die to regicide as Thranduil's Halls. But the AI accepts adoptions like they're going out of fashion, so they probably don't have too much trouble with it. But certain nations do, of course. The victory conditions for the Woodland Realm. This is a long campaign, and which I tend to always show. The short ones are always just a watered-down version. But for the Woodland Realm, it's 20 regions, it's Thranduil's Halls, it's Barad-dûr, it's Dol Guldur, and it is eliminating both Mordor and Dol Guldur. So you've got to go south if you're in the victory conditions. Remember that as of quite some time ago, Mordor can be destroyed by just taking all of their provinces. We removed the Horde feature of them, and we removed the requirement to destroy the ring. You can destroy the ring, and that will instantly destroy them. That's the fastest way to do it. But you can also just destroy them by sheer slogging through, and then they evaporate into nothing. And of course, Dol Guldur died just in the normal ways. You can take all of their regions, or you can kill their leaders. Do note that, of course, Dol Guldur's Nazgul will respawn whilst Dol Guldur is held by itself. So if you can capture their capital, their Nazgul will not respawn, and even better, they'll respawn for Mordor, which means you can kill them, take the capital, and then you know that they're then going to spawn over here. So then even if you lose the capital, once they've spawned for Mordor, they haven't got to die for Mordor to come back for Dol Guldur, if Dol Guldur reclaims the hill. So you can, provided you've taken Dol Guldur, you won't fight Nazgul more than hopefully once in these campaigns, unless you lose to them, of course. So the area you start in is, of course, Mirkwood, the Erun Lascallan, the Wood of Green Leaves, which is what it used to be called. But now it is Mirkwood. And it is a perfect ambush spot. Everywhere outside of the roads is basically a guaranteed ambush. So if you're really into ambushing the enemy, this is the place to do it. You've got no real protection other than that, but it is a fantastic protection. There is, of course, the river that runs right through, and there's a bridge crossing up there, which guards at least a little bit into the realm from that sort of northern side. But, of course, no one's really coming from the north anyway, so ignore that. But turning to rebel regions, Emun Nufuin in the mountains of Mirkwood is available, but you'll note it has a large garrison at the start, almost an enclave, if you will. And then you've got Erun Thollen down to the south, or Erun Thollen, which again is rebel, and then the last one is Enethaur, which literally means middle woods or middle forest or central forest, and that's where it is, in the middle of the forest. Erun Hrunen, though, is held by Dol Guldur at the start, and they're already up here knocking on your door, and of course the Anduin have Leotholt and then the Anduin. So rebel regions for you are mostly to the south. You've got Witherboard, but the dwarves and Gundabad will fight over that. And unless you particularly plan on getting involved in that back and forth in the mountains to the north, I'd recommend leaving Witherboard for them to fight over. Custom battle maps. Thranduil's Halls is of course a custom battle map and looks very much like it does on the strategy map. Turn all that off. So there's a bridge battle with a nice little gate on it. Other than Thranduil's Halls, you've got to head over to Erebor or Dale or Esgaroth. And if you're going to go south, which is where you primarily will be going, Bjorn's Halls is also custom, as is Dol Guldur. So there's a number of custom settlements which will give you some variety throughout your campaign. These settlements within the forest itself are of course mostly all elven settlements. So again, whilst they are custom, if you are comparing Divide and Conquer to Medieval 2, they are still generic custom. So they are, once you've seen one, you've seen them all, and you may see them many times. Neighbours and diplomacy. You start allied to those around you, being the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm, Dale, and the Vale of Dorwinion, and you start at war with Dol Guldur. Notably, you don't start allied to Erebor, and you don't start at war with Gundabad or Moria. Moria do have the potential to border you, depending on how their fight with the Anduin goes. Gundabad almost certainly will border you, and indeed they start bordering you in Rakjeberg. So you've got to watch out for them. They might come for you with a bloodthirsty vengeance. And the dwarves, it's best to try and get them on side early so that they can then focus on Gundabad for you. The Vale of Dorwinion being your ally, obviously they're far away, but that would just give you a little bit of trade. But note, you don't actually have any port settlements at all at the start, so you don't get any sea trade, which is the best way to trade with Dorwinion, because of course they are far, far away. Other than that, the only other people you may encounter, of course, are the elves, and it's very worthwhile that you try and obtain an alliance with Lothlorien, as we shall see in just a moment. Turning then to your economy, the elves are no longer restricted in any regard, so you can build everything. You used to be restricted, you are no longer, but do note that your castle battle maps and your town battle maps are the same. And whilst they do have different strategy models, with the castles having that sort of large star-like walkway in the centre denoting a castle, I'm sure they shall be revamped in future to make them a bit more obvious they're castles, but the battle maps at the moment are the same. We do plan on changing them in due course. Turning to guilds, you get the Dance Guild, which gives various bonuses. Public order, public growth, a global public order bonus, which is quite nice. Master Dance Guild. In the Warriors Guild, you get Bladesmith and Master Bladesmith, and it's the same you get the same benefits as most factions, with a melee weapon bonus and a morale bonus to troops worldwide. You get the Town Health Building, as all do, and remember that health buildings are primarily useful for giving your generals healer ancillaries, so that more units are healed after the battle. The actual bonuses to the towns are relatively minor, but the ability to get healing traits is fantastic. You do get sea trade and you do get ports, obviously, although it may be better to look in. No, it can't show you because of the barracks event. And there may be more ports available to you that are locked out by the barracks event. Do note that you do get the longship, but the wood elves are not particularly well known as seafarers, and you don't get beyond a longship, which is the same quality boat as Dale and Dorwinion and all of those folks. You aren't a massive seafaring nation. And indeed, the bulk of your population has never even seen the sea. That is something to remember. The Woodland Realm, of course, is made up primarily of Nandor elves who stayed in what was Erun Lascallan way back at the Great Journey. And then, with the fall of Beleriand and the Sindar flooding and fleeing that area, Orodreth and a small number of Sindar elves came to the Wood Elves and took leadership here. So whilst Thranduil has almost certainly seen the sea, as he was born and raised in Beleriand, and he is a Sindar, your people are not, and they have known nothing but the woodland. So why would they know anything about the sea? They simply wouldn't. Although, having said that, of course, Legolas does build his own boat that he sails, he and Gimli to, away from Middle-earth at the end. But on the whole, you're not a seafaring nation, so that's what we've taken it as. But you do get a longship, as you saw there. Master Builder everyone gets, and you do not get the standard advanced blacksmithing building. I believe, if memory serves, that your Sylvan Gathering building... No, indeed it doesn't. No, you just don't get an advanced blacksmith as the elves, I'm afraid. So, taking places, you won't get any sort of boost to your blacksmithing. Your Diplomat comes out of the Woodland Caverns, the unique building in Thranduil's Hall, and the next nearest location you shall get a Diplomat is either Erebor, Dale, Dol Guldur, or Bjorn's Hall. So you've got to take one of those if you want more than one Diplomat, or more than two. I think it's 2 per unique building, but it may only be 1. So that's the sort of buildings and what you can expect for Thranduil's Halls, although I should just mention you are a standard training faction, which means you make use of all three of the standard buildings, being a stables, a barracks, and a range. So if you capture a standard building from someone else, you will be able to use it. So Dale and Erebor use standard buildings, and but of course the Anduin do not, but Dol Guldur do, so you'll be able to use Dol Guldur's buildings. Culture-wise, of course, the only people that are anywhere near your culture are the elves of Lothlorien, so you will be having to convert most of the regions you take to your elven culture. Elven culture is spread throughout the forest as you head south. There's a sprinkling of it, because of course you used to hold this place. Like there's 32% elven in Dor Lingvar. But of course, all the while Dol Guldur hold it, that number will be decreasing. So then we come to gameplay events, and for the elves there is only the Elven Alliance. So this begins by you need to ally with Lothlorien, and then at around turn 40 the actual script will kick in, but you must be allied first. So if you ally with Lothlorien before turn 40, then at turn 40 the script will begin, or thereabouts. If, however, you ally after turn 40, then it will begin almost immediately as soon as you ally with them. So you've got to get a normal alliance with them first. And essentially you just get a little system whereby you get warned that you're going to be attacked. And would you like assistance from your sister nation? And you can say yes or no. And in either event, you will then be attacked at Thranduil's Halls with an army from Mordor, I think it is. And if you said yes, then your garrison will be buffed with a heap of Lothlorien units. And if you said no, then you've got to fight it on your own. It's quite a hard battle, but it's a winnable battle. But if it catches you by surprise, it may take the city. After you finally reclaim your city, or indeed after you beat it, you then get approached again and they say, we liked this union thing, shall we actually go for a proper union in face of all the darkness that we have against us? And you can say yes, or you can say no. Now, if you say yes, you've already seen the building, because I clicked on it a moment ago. If you say yes, you get the Sylvan Gathering building, which gives the Sylvan Alliance encampment, and allows you to train from Lothlorien the Gurthinen, the Lorien Scouts, Sentinels of Ken and Amroth, and Galadrim Guards. And it's just a small spattering. They fill a couple of holes, but really it's just for flavour. It's just to have to see the union of your forces on the field. If, however, you say no, then out of Thranduil's Halls and Dol Guldur, you will then be able to train the Arathirith. So if you focus solely on yourself, then the Arathirith is expanded from just purely your King's Guard to being the elites of your entire nation. As if you're standing alone, you're going to need something a bit stronger. So the Elven King's Guard become available to you as a unit if you say no. You can say no right at the beginning and the unit becomes available. So when they first say to you, would you like us to come and support you? Or I think it's just after that. Just after you actually get attacked, you then get a message saying, should we take this alliance thing further? And you can say yes or no at that point. You don't have to wait till the very end to say no. You can say yes or no at the start. But if you say yes, you can then say no again at the end. So it's up to you. But it is just a minor little change. The Sylvan Alliance building is only available in Thranduil's Halls, Dol Guldur, and Amunlank as well. That is Amunlank, sorry. And Lothlorien, I mean. So the Sylvan Alliance building is available in 3 places. The unit that you get if you say no is only available in 2. There are no other rewards. It isn't that your nations join together, although perhaps that may be discussed in the future. So you actually just get Lothlorien. That could well be a system, but if we did that, we'd expand on the script. But of course, that is something that we could turn it into instead of this simple union thing. And now that I say it out loud, actually, I quite like that idea. But for the moment, it's just a few units from Lothlorien or the Arathirith. And that's it for gameplay events. So returning to difficulty of Thranduil's Halls, it's an interesting one because, of course, you've got allies on your east and you've got allies on your west. Gundabad don't really ever fight you. It's really just Dol Guldur. But if you're going for the long victory conditions, then you will beat Dol Guldur, no trouble. Like, that's just a given. Your units are fantastic. You really outclass them. You've got enough time to build up. So you can take Dol Guldur down, no trouble, but then by the time they do take a little while to kill, they put up at least a bit of a fight. So then you've got to turn to Mordor, who by that time are then quite powerful. And it then turns into, unfortunately, a bit of a slog as you try and curse your way and carve your way into Mordor. But overall, I would put the difficulty probably overall as a 2, because whilst Dol Guldur will put up a fight and it may seem a challenge, Once they are dead, you've got plenty of time to then prepare and wait and build up an army, and then to try and take on Mordor's sort of slugfest. And I wouldn't put slugfest down as difficult. They are annoying and often quite boring, but they're not usually difficult. And it's more just whether or not you've got the mental fortitude to know you're going to be fighting 2 Mordor armies every turn until you can start really taking their towns from them. And stack spam, of course, is the bane of this game, and we do try everything we can do to limit it without taking away the fun of the game, because the best way to limit stack spam is to simply make units take, say, 5 or 6 turns to train, and then have a 20 or 30 turn replenishment rate, which some mods do. But then how boring is that? So it's difficult to countenance. So I don't think the campaign is very difficult. I think you've got, particularly with you and the Anduin hitting Dol Guldur, you will take them down. There's just no two ways about it. Also note, of course, Dale go for Dol Guldur now as well, so it's 3 against 1 really. It only really turns a little challenging if the Anduin get bested by Moria, but they are unlikely to do that because Erebor will keep Gundabad safe, will keep Gundabad in check, which takes them away from Anduin's northern border, which allows Anduin to diversify and hit both Moria and Dol Guldur. So I'm going with the 2. Right, so not much to talk about on the campaign map side this time, but now let's jump over to the battle map, and fortune willing, I won't forget any units this time, and we'll see what their roster looks like. Welcome then to the battle overview for the Woodland Realm, and a quick overview shows you that whilst you do seem to have a unit in at least every category, you have a very heavy archer focus, more archers than any faction I think we've covered so far. There's also a couple of javelin units interspersed amongst your ground forces, so range is very much the key. Now allow me to just say something that has always irked me, but we've kind of just gone along with it because it's too embedded now. The Woodland Realm are the best archer faction in the game. As a whole, alright, they don't have the single best archer unit in the game, but they have the best archers overall in the game. And really, Lothlorien should have that award, because as we know, or as many of us will know, Galadriel gives Legolas a bow from Lothlorien, just a standard Lothlorien bow, and it's remarked that that is better than the bows used by his own people. So really, it kind of should be the other way around, and Lothlorien should be the finer archers, and the Woodland Realm should have Lothlorien sort of defensive or their own kind of flavour. But in this instance, the Woodland Realm are the best archers overall. And that is defined by the fact that your gameplay features archers most heavily. They have an archer at every tier, they have an archer for every occasion. And that is the point. It isn't just that they have the single best archer unit, because almost certainly a unit from the High Elves is probably the best archer. But anyway, without any further ado, let's dive in. So there's a few tiers for your faction roster, but at the beginning you will be starting with your Woodland Spears and... Oh, hello, is that what Control F2 does? Ah, yes, that's interesting. It turns off the little hovering display. Oh, that's cool. Sorry, ignore me. So, Woodland Spearmen and Woodland Warriors, your first starting unit. The Spearmen, as expected, are Spearmen, but they are Elves. And even though we're not High Elves, we are still very, very good. And the Woodland Realm is defined, as I've said, by archers, but also by high attack and lower defense stats. Now, they're still elves, they still have good defense stats, but compared to Lothlorien, they do suffer in the defense output, but Lothlorien are less aggressive. But anyway, Spearmen. 7 attack, 5 charge, 15 total defense. They can shield wall already with your first unit. All of then this nation's roster is effective at hiding in even a small patch of trees. And being elves, they're also usually faster than anything else at their kind of tier. So the Spearmen or the trash units of other nations will be slower than the elves. Morale is good, morale response is good. Only really the dwarves have better morale and morale response at each tier. They get a bonus against all types of mounts, but note they get a specific boost against the black mounts of the Ulairi. So they are particularly good at killing Khamul's bodyguard and then the Witch King's bodyguard, those horses that use them. And if Dol Guldur ever trains Shadow Knights, then they also get a bonus against them, a specific bonus. So anyway, the Spearmen will hold your line, and of course the Warriors will then do the flanking. A 9 attack instead of 7, but a 13 defense instead of 15. And otherwise, very similar, except they have a 20% movement boost, so they are very quick on their feet. Also, at this tier, you get your first Javelin, the Woodland Wardens, and looking very, very nice indeed. Woodland Wardens are a sword and shield when they finish with their Javelins. Their melee is the same as the shield. is the same as the spearmen, and their defense is the same as the warriors. So they are slightly worse at their melee stats than one of the two neighbours that they are next to. But they, of course, have a javelin with an 8 attack, which is very, very nice and good indeed. 4 javelins to throw, high accuracy, and 65 meter range. They're very good, and the 3 starting units of the Woodland Realm will do very, very well as the game progresses. And there is the Woodland Realm banner. We'll look at that first, because last time I'm sure that's what distracted me to forget the other units. So there's the symbol of the Woodland Realm with some arrows on the end, looking nice. You also get your first archer, who's already firing because the range of the elves is fantastic, and they are Woodland Scouts. Note that brown and green is very much the defining colours of the Woodland Realm colours, because of course the Mirkwood is a brown and green forest as opposed to the grey and yellow forest that Lothlorien is. Melee attack of only 5, defense of only 8, so still those are relatively good stats for a starting archer, but don't let anything shoot back at them because their defense will only be 4. Their missile attack is 6, which is as good as many human nations' best archer, and this is your starting archer. Good morale response, and again that 20% boost. Their range is 180 rather than 160, which most starting archers have. They've only got 20 arrows though, and their average accuracy. But do note something that we could put in, but it just kind of leads to confusion. Elves are slightly more accurate at each tier than the message would suggest. So if an orc archer had average accuracy and an elf had average, the elf would actually be more accurate than the orc, only by a couple of points. But just note that the elves are the most accurate at their tier of any archers. You also get a first cavalry archer. Note that all of your cavalry, I've included Ents here because the roster's so small so we can talk about them, but you're very unlikely to actually train them. But your only 2 cavalry options are both horse archers, so they're not fantastic at being actual cavalry because horse archers suffer. Primarily, this is one of those annoying little features of the game, but this formation leads them to not charge very well. And so it can lead to problems, but it makes that formation is absolutely fantastic when they are horse archers. So we opt to make them better horse archers at the cost of their charging ability. But their melee attack is 7, their defense is 8. So again, very low stats comparatively. Their missile attack though is still 6. Good morale response, 10% faster than other cavalry, 30 arrows, 140 on the range, and high accuracy. They're a really good horse archer unit, and whilst Canned will provide better horse archer units, because Canned are the horse archers, woodland horse archers, and then the Arthurchon afterwards are very, very powerful. So then we jump up to your tier 2, although the barracks event I think comes in actually after these 2 units. But of course the barracks event is being cut, so that doesn't matter anymore. But the first up are the Maithur Ithewar, which means warriors of the forest, or woodland warriors. Maithur literally means warriors in the plural, hence why there's a Y at the end, and Ithewar means of the forests, again plural, otherwise the AI would be just an A, I think, or an A. I can't remember. It might be an A or an AU. Anyway, they're effective against armor. There are a strike infantry, and stay tuned for strike infantry because I am finally going to record the top 10. And in fact, by the time you watch this, I've hopefully already recorded it. So they are a strike infantry with an attack of 11 and a defense of 16. No shield, as most strike infantry don't have. Note, of course, that if they're getting shot by arrows, their defense is only 9. And if they are being flanked in the back, then no, defense skill, I think it applies all the time. As long as they're in melee, it only doesn't apply out of melee. So they're good stats in melee, an excellent attack with effective against armor, but they do cost 1,100, something I've not mentioned so far because I didn't think to look at it. But the elves are costly. The recruitment cost is high, and their upkeep after that is high as well. With upkeep, roughly half the recruitment cost, and you should get an idea of what the upkeep is like. So a near 380 upkeep, which is expensive for the Woodland Spearman, but for the Maithur it's almost 500. It will probably be a little it will be a little under half, but that gives you a rough idea. Adept at hiding in woods as all other elves. There's a pronunciation guide for these units because a lot of people hate that they have Sindarin names, so we tried to make it easier. Maithur Ithewar, and that is so that you're saying theft. So it's the from theft, Thewar. Anyway, very good morale response, and a 15% movement speed buff. They also look pretty cool in the the armor that they wear. I think they look really nice. And they've been given a sort of brown hue again to make them blend in a bit better. A very nice looking unit. And they are supported by your next archer, the Woodland Sentinels. The Woodland Sentinels are significantly better than the unit before. Their defense jumps up to 13 with the armor doubling, so they're much better at handling enemies shooting back. Their melee is now 8 as opposed to 5, and their range, the missiles, is 8 instead of 6. So a fantastic archer, a really, really good one. You really want to fill out your early tier roster with those archers because they will do a lot of damage. 200 meter range, high accuracy, 26 arrows, and 20% movement speed again. The elven archers, if you put them on skirmishing, are unlikely to ever be caught by the enemy because there's nothing that is faster than an elf. Other than cavalry, of course. But ground-wise, elves are the fastest ground units the game has, so use that to your advantage. And then we come to the Arthurchon, the next horse archer unit. The Royal Scouts is what I've taken is the best summation of that name, the translation. They are just much better, again, than the archers before them. It's a similar sort of story. So the melee, missile, and charge go up to 885 from 765. So the charge is the same, and again, they have that same formation. So they're not actually that good at killing. Now, do note, they still charge effectively. They are still cavalry. They still will hit their enemy. They still get a charge bonus, and they get the mount benefits and the mass benefits that having a cavalry unit does. It's just a dedicated charge unit with exactly the same stats in a normal line formation would do better. That's all I'm trying to get across. They can Cantabrian Circle. They inspire your forces as well, which is pretty good. They, as I say, they only come... Oh, I didn't say, but they do only come from Thranduil's Halls or Amun Lank, so they are restricted. Because the one thing that the Wood Elves and the Elves of Lothlorien don't do is cavalry, which is why you don't actually have very good cavalry. And even your best cavalry is then restricted, as it is in this instance as well. Very good morale, though. Good morale response, 10% movement speed buff, 34 missiles, 150 on the range, and high accuracy. They're better than the cavalry before them in the same order that the Sentinels are better than the Scouts. So a very good unit, but quite costly at 1220, meaning their upkeep's about 500 to 600. But they only come from 2 locations, so you won't see too many of them. But then we come to your actual elites, and we shall start with the melee as we always do. Over here with Elven King's Gate Guard. Now, they have been given a design based on the Hobbit movies because taking inspiration from popular media is wise because people want it. So there they are. Although do excuse the fact that at the moment you can see through everyone's arms. Which Oh, can you? Or is that actually a band? No, that's a band on their arms. Ignore me, ignore me. Anyway, Elven King's Gate Guard. This unit caused a little bit of controversy when we first showed it off because people are either in love with the Darth Maul style weapon or they absolutely hate it and they think it's an absolute joke. This, of course, is a fantasy world. There's only so many weapons we can actually put in before units just feel like clones of one another, and that is exactly why they have this double-headed glaive-like weapon. Because otherwise, they are just carbon copy clones of Lothlorien's elite units. And we need to make the factions feel different. So as much as you might hate that weapon, would you rather Lothlorien and the Woodland Realm were basically identical? Because there's very little we can do to separate them. And so something we've done is give weapon variety. So that's why that weapon is there. They frighten nearby enemy infantry, but they don't inspire your forces. Their attack is 17, 9 on the charge bonus, and 21 total defense. They are a strike infantry unit, and the weapon is wielded as a two-handed sword. So think of them as a two-handed sword unit, despite what the weapon looks like. Their morale is excellent, and it is locked, so they will not run away unless you tell them to. Their morale response is just good, though, so they don't deal with shocks fantastically. But the morale response, the difference between the tiers is actually really minor, so don't read into that too much. They get a movement speed bonus of 10%, and interestingly, they get a bonus against mounts. But only the black mounts of the Ulayri, so they're very good at killing Nazgul. Supporting them are the Elven King's Axe Guard. Now, these units all used to have a Sindarian name, but we swapped out the Sindarian names for the more unique units and kept the elites with English names. They used to be called the Hiri something, Hiri Lang, Hiri Bang, and Hiri something else, which just meant Lords of the Bow, Sword, and Spear. But now they're called normal names. So the Elven King's Axe Guard are just an axe and shield unit. They don't get an effective against armor, so essentially consider them as sword and board. 13 attack, 26 defense. They can hold the line well, or they can attack well. They do either. They get a bonus against all mounts, again giving them just a nice aggressive edge, giving the Woodland Realm that more offensive feel. Excellent morale, locked on the response. So again, you got to tell them to run away. But note the cost is quite high at 1,300. And then lastly, there is also the Elder Council in the melee tier. Now the Elder Council are your elite javelins, and really the Elder Council could do with being sort of halfway between these two. Because their defense is only 20, the Maithori Thawar is 16, and the Elven Kings is 26, so they're sort of almost halfway. But their melee attack is 11, which is really good for a spear unit, because that is what they are spearmen. They're effective against armor with their javelins, but not with their spears. But an AP javelin is really powerful, and with a missile attack of 11 as well, that's really powerful. They are fantastic at killing trolls, Mumakil, great beasts, anything that's on a horse, and of course then just anything with a high armor stat. So very, very useful unit indeed. Quite costly. Their stats when they get into defense are good, but they're not as good as the Elven King units. So they'll hold a line relatively well, but if you need something to do the killing, get the Elven Kings to do it, because they have much higher stats. They are not locked morale, and they don't have excellent morale either, so it's only very good. But they are 15% movement speed, as opposed to the Elven King's only 10. So they're slightly faster, 65 meter range, high accuracy, and 3 missiles. And as you'd expect, a bonus against all mounts, because javelins get bonuses against mounts. So then we turn to the 2 archer units you get at this tier. Now, one is a fantastic archer, but will die if the enemy finds it, and the other is a nice all-rounder. And this is Legolas's bodyguard, but is just your standard elite unit. It's available everywhere, and they are the Elven King's Bowguard. So again, excellent morale, locked, 10% buff, 32 missiles, 220 meter range, very high accuracy. The melee attack is 11, which is quite nice when they finish, but their defense is down on 18, so it's even lower than the Elder Council. But their missile attack is 10, which is fantastic. Only the elves really get missile attacks above, say, even 7 or 8, to be honest, unless it's a crossbow unit, but they don't count. But so of the elves, they're really up there with the best. I think 11 or 12 is actually the highest arrow damage in the game, and that is either the Hinidawa or the Bodyguard of Elrond. But in terms of missile attack, a 10 is fantastic. Note that there's only 114 of them amongst their number, so watch out for that. And then we come to the Hinidawa. I'm just double checking something and I think it's correct. The Hinidawa are a fantastic archer unit. They can hide anywhere, which is their first benefit. Hinidawa means Eyes of the Forest, if you're interested. Their melee attack is 11, which is quite aggressive, but their defense is only 14, which is quite low. So as I say, enemy archers will deal with them quite nicely, particularly in the late game, because their defense against arrows is only 6. Their missile attack is 12, as I say. I think that is the highest missile attack in the game for an archer. But what really makes them stand out is the silver thorn arrows that they have. Now, they aren't armor piercing, but they are body piercing. So their arrows will go through multiple opponents and will get a lot of kills. They rack them up quite easily. Their morale is excellent, their morale response is good, they have a 20% movement speed, but what stands them really apart is they have the highest accuracy of any archer, they have the highest range of any archer, but they do only get 20 missiles to compensate, so do watch out for that. And the biggest thing that's holding them back is they've only got 76 men in their battalion. But as I say, do note that every arrow will go through more than one enemy unit. So generally speaking, there's actually about 140 of them if you consider that at least 2 units will likely be struck by each arrow of the Hinidawa. So a very, very nice and strong unit. Now, before we get to the bodyguard, we will deal with the last archer unit, the Arathirith, which does, as I say, mean Elven King's Guard. The Arathirith are Thranduil's bodyguard, and then unlocked if you reject the alliance. They have a melee attack of 15, which is very, very nice indeed, and is armor piercing. They wield a 2-handed axe as their melee weapon. So they're a Maithori Thawar, but with a bow, basically. Missile attack is 11, so even better than the Elven Kings, and only 1 behind the Hinidawa, which is fantastic. They have a 26 total defense, but they don't get the Silverthorn arrows. Only the Hinidawa get those. And they have a unique visual that we'll see in a moment when they shoot. They have 220 meter range, very high accuracy, 32 missiles, only 10% movement speed, but they have the highest possible morale, and it is locked, so they will fight on the longest. Which is why overall they are one of the best archers, because they're anti-archer defense, which is usually archers do actually end up shooting each other in combat. The AI often will target your archers with their own archers, and you'll almost certainly always be fighting the AI. So an archer defense is quite important. And so having a 14 defense against arrow fire is fantastic when you consider that the main enemies of the Woodland realm, Dol Guldur, Mordor, Moria, they don't have very good archers at all. So your Arathirith will stand there and take those, they'll shrug off the enemy's fire, and they will slaughter anything that they shoot at with their ridiculous attack of 11. But as I say, they only come from Thranduil's Halls or Amun Lank, as I mentioned in the first half. Amun Lank is the name of Dol Guldur before it became Dol Guldur. It just means the naked hill, quite literally meaning naked hill, Amun Lank. Although it's the other way around. It means, literally, it's hill naked. But that's the way that they're written. They cost an awful lot, though. And, of course, they come in quite late because you've got to reject the alliance before you can get them. But they're a fantastic unit. And they happen to look really, really cool. I really like their design. Very nice indeed. So lastly then, before the bodyguard, there are the Ents. Now the Ents are only available in the Rochberg region, which is way, way, way to the south, and which actually contains Fangorn Forest. Ents are better versions of trolls, which means they are infantry. So pikes don't get a bonus against them. You kill them with armor piercing, with siege, or with arrow fire. That's how you bring down Ents and trolls. Ents are just, as I say, they're just a better version of a troll. They are the best troll-type unit, better than Olokai even. They have 7 hit points with a 41 defense. Their attack is 45. They throw units in the air when they attack. They're very, very fast. Their charge bonus is 15. They get a bonus against mounts. They frighten anyone nearby them. Their movement speed is reduced, but they are actually still quite quick. It has to be that slow in order, otherwise they nip across the battlefield like lightning. They have locked morale, so they will not run away, unless you tell them to. And excellent morale response. And impetuous morale response. They're very, very costly, and they only come from one region, and it's miles away, so you're very unlikely to actually get them. But if you do get down to Rochberg, I can't remember specifically which building they come from. I think it's the Town Hall. No, I think it's the Dance Guild. They come from the Dance Guild, if memory serves. Which is a building that you can actually build, so it shouldn't really have a guild as a name, because it isn't actually technically a guild, I don't think. But anyway, they come from a building in that one region alone, and that's where you train them. So very, very, very rare. And then lastly, as we say, your bodyguard. I'm really paranoid now. Have I covered everything? We went up the lines, didn't we? Yeah, we have done. So then we come to the bodyguard, the Tawar Arainiur, which just means Forest High Elders, or Wood Elves High Elders. Wood Elven High Elders is probably the best word. Tawar means wood. It's a shorthand version of Wood Elves. Tawar Waith literally means Wood Elves. So these ones are really the Woodland High Elders. Arainior just literally means High Elder. Melee attack of 11, missile attack of 11, and a total defense of 27. They are a very, very, very strong unit, but note they don't get a shield, and I believe that when they go into combat, they are just a sword unit. I think they are a two-handed sword unit, but they are just a sword unit. Really their strength, of course, is again in their arrows. Keep them shooting the enemy, keep them firing and firing and firing. Note that they have a locked morale, which does mean that you've got to tell them to run away, and means that your generals may often fight to the death when you don't want them to, which is very annoying. But you can, a cheesy and last resort tactic, if your general is dying and you know the battle is lost, if you quit the battle when your general's still alive, he might make it out. It's a gamble, sometimes he won't, but if you stay with a locked morale general, if you stay in that battle that you're losing and you know you're going to lose, he will 100% die. But if you quit, he might survive. Just a minor cheese for those of you that wish to cheese. Exceptional accuracy, 220 meter range, 32 missiles, and again a bonus against the Nazgul. So the Wood Elves are very, very good at bringing down the cavalry that the Nazgul come with. And in truth, I've said Nazgul, but really all I mean, the unit you'll most likely see are the Shadow Knights of Dol Guldur. You're very good against them. And that is it. That is the Wood Elf roster. So let's hand it over to the AI, if we can, which we can, and then we will see how it goes. So those are the Wood Elves. The Wood Elves have a really nice aesthetic now. They do really stand apart from Lothlorien. The two armies look different now, which I really do like. And they just have I do like the Wood Elves. I much prefer the Woodland realm to Lothlorien. I've always thought Lothlorien's a bit boring, to be honest. But there we are. So then we shall turn over to who are we up against next time. Now the first thing that you will note, and is a absolutely massive giveaway, is there is not a single cavalry unit on the field. So you've already narrowed your choices down to one of two. There's a couple of siege units there that look quite obvious. So then the question in your mind is this unit red or is this unit silver? And of course, as you can all see, it is heavily silver. And it is, of course, the great realm and city of Khazad-dûm. First Legion marching through, Legion Shield Guard, Legion Hammer Guard. The Dwarves of Khazad-dûm look fan-bloody-tastic. And again, very distinguished from Erebor. You do not feel like you're playing a knockoff Erebor. You feel like you're your own standalone nation. And a very nice looking roster indeed. Cool little flag. I do like the odd flag to have text on it. There's something about Dwarven flags having text on that just seems right to me. Even though a flag having text usually is stupid, and many of course, your states over in America where they write the name of the state on. I just think that's so silly. Surely you can come up with a better design than that. But anyway, I promised you the Hinny Dower, so if they're in position, we can watch them fire. Yes, there they are, and there is the Silverthorn arrow. So the only thing that stands it apart, really, is that it has the arrow trail that they added in later games. With every other arrow, you only actually see the arrowhead, as you can all see, but the Silverthorn arrows have that sort of lightning-like trail behind them. And that's what distinguishes them. As Khazad-dûm Reclaimers, they're flying in on our line. We're getting hit by every archer that we've got, and they're taking a bit of a beating. But of course, the Hinny Dower are best used when the enemy clumps up like this. Because of the body piercing, they'll hit anything that their arrow hits. So a unit like the Reclaimers, which are all spread apart, marching their 500 miles, they aren't that good. They're not a good target for the Hinny Dower. You need something bunched up to make use of your body-piercing arrow. Like, did you see all three of those men just knock over then because the arrow hit them? Rewind it and watch the arrow hit all three of those men. But anyway, that will conclude this episode. So I do hope you've enjoyed. I hope you're looking forward to the Khazad-dûm episode, and specifically, I hope you're looking forward to my attempt at telling you what the best strike infantry unit is. As at the time I recorded this episode yesterday morning, I've not yet recorded the video, so I don't know who's going to win, but I am going to record the video right now after this one is completed, and I've had some breakfast. But until we speak again, dear friends, Nevair na den Pedamad Melonin, and farewell.